Coming up, SpaceX shows a little leg.
Today is the day of the future.
And we're joined by author Rick Boozer to talk about the Space Launch System. Stay tuned. Tomorrow starts right now.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. Got the flag up now. You can see the stars and stripes.
Private space station.
And welcome to Space Vidcast, episode 7.06 for March 1st, 2014. My name is Benjamin Higginbotham. With me, as always, my beautiful, lovely, wonderful, and talented wife, Carrie Ann Higginbotham, and we will be your hosts for this episode. And before we get started, really quick, I wanted to thank the Space Vidcast Premier Team for sponsoring this segment of Space News. The Premier Team, they're the ones who have spent $10 or more per episode. So these guys have spent $10 to bring this episode to you, and you can get more information on that at patreon.com/spacevidcast, where you too can become a Space Vidcast patron at many different levels: premier, producer, or patron. Let's go ahead and get started with some space news. Today is the day of the future. Future Day. I'm looking at the wrong camera. Future Day. There we go.
Yeah, me too. So today is Future Day. So happy Future Day to everyone here.
What the heck is Future Day?
March 1st is Future Day, or so dubbed Future Day. First Future Day event was actually held in 2011. It was actually held very futuristically in virtual reality.
Of course it was.
Right? It's a day where we just want people to come together and think long term. It's sort of akin to the 100-year Starship program, things along that nature. And it's all events that are formal to informal. So it's as easy as what we're doing right now. Hi everyone, we're celebrating
Future Day.
Or it could be like there's a Build conference going on in San Francisco over the weekend, and they will also be celebrating Future Day in their own sort of way.
So I'd say it's a lot like Yuri's night, where you can kind of develop your own parties and your own whatever. So it's either a huge group or a small group. And it's for Yuri's night, it's celebrating Yuri Gagarin and what happened in the past. Whereas Future Day is, let's celebrate the awesomeness that humanity has in potential for the future.
Absolutely. There's an emphasis on critical, logical, long-term thinking with a focus on the betterment of humanity. It's on March 1st every single year. Of course, it's only been going for a couple of years now. And you can reach Future Day or be involved in Future Day with their Twitter account, which is @FutureDay, #FutureDay. They are also on Facebook and futureday.org/events, where you can find events near you or create a new event.
So allow us to show you a glimpse into the future. SpaceX has announced that on the CRS-3 mission, which is the cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station, the rocket, the Falcon 9 rocket that will be hoisting Dragon up, will be supporting landing legs. Check out this picture. This was tweeted out by Elon Musk. Those are, you can see in the picture, 3 of the 4 landing legs at the base of the Falcon 9 rocket. So this is the future, right? Rather than taking the rocket and dumping it into the ocean, this is what hopefully SpaceX will be able to do, is take the entire first stage and reuse it. And that's critical for 2 points. One, reusability helps bring the cost of the rocket way, way down. The cost of flying it way down. You don't have to dump the engines in the ocean anymore. You recover the entire first stage. You just fuel it up and go again. We've got a second picture kind of looking at the side. There you can see, you get an idea kind of the size of these landing legs. And for any of you who have been able to go into SpaceX, I'd say within the last month or so, you can see one of those hanging up on the wall. It is truly awesome. The second reason this is important is SpaceX has made no secret that their goal is to go to Mars. Well, if you're going to go and you're going to put humans on Mars, guess what you need to do? You need to land. So it's important to be able to learn this technology here on Earth so you can apply those same principles on Mars itself. That is the future. That is, I think, we are watching a huge revolution in space unfold right before our very eyes.
Not
I think
gonna lie, kind of sexy.
Really, really cool. Yeah, it's kind of sexy. It's really cool to see all of this new neat stuff happening before us. All right, moving on. We actually had a launch. We had the launch of an H-IIB rocket hoisting a weather satellite. Here's the launch coverage.
全システム準備完了。
All systems are ready. 7、6、5、
駆動用電池起動。
4、Thermal battery
メインエンジン
activation.
スタート。
Main engine ignition.
SRB へ点火。リフトオフ。
SRB ignition and liftoff.
日米共同開発の全球降水探査。 STM 系統中衛星と小型空衛星7機を搭載した H-IIB ロケット
So this launched on Thursday, February 27th, 2014 at 1837 coordinated time. It was hoisting up a 4-ton weather satellite. It's going to take radar-like snapshots of the global precipitation of Earth every 3 hours or so. It's a $1.2 billion joint satellite mission with NASA. And you see some of the stats on the right-hand side. You'll notice it's in a 202 configuration. Explaining what that means, the first number 2 means it's a 2-stage vehicle, so it will always show 2. The second number is 0, indicating that there are 0 liquid boosters on the side. That number will also always be 0 because they discontinued the liquid booster program, so it will always be 20. And then the third number is the number of solid rocket boosters, and that number could be either 0 or 2, depending upon what configuration it is. And this is a 202, indicating it's a 2-stage, no liquid, and 2 solid motors on the side of the vehicle, which you could see there. Like I said, it lofted up the satellite. It's going to measure rain and snowfall, and it's part of a much larger constellation that's going up and in there. And there you can see, I think that's staging, hard to see from our monitor.
Pretty.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys like the banner on the right-hand side, giving you a little bit more information on the vehicle that I don't have to cover in person. All right. Right? I don't know if you guys remember this. 2013, almost a year ago, not quite, July 16th, 2013, there was extravehicular activity at the International Space Station, and there was a bit of an issue. And it didn't sound like a big deal, at least not to me at first.
Right.
Astronaut, I don't remember the astronaut's name.
Luca Parmitano.
He had said, oh, hey, I think there's some water droplets in my helmet. And I'm like, all right, well, he's sweating. Here's actually the footage. This is the exact moment in time where things started to go wrong. Check it out.
I see beads of sweat. No, it's not sweat. No, it's not sweat.
Hey, Luca, can you clarify, is it increasing or not increasing?
It's hard to tell, but it feels like a lot of water. Oh, I see, yeah. I see it now, wiggling. Can you see? It's over here, right? Yeah, but I have that, and then there is about the same amount of when I took the helmet down last time, Chris. Really? Yeah, I can feel it in the back of my head. I don't understand where it's coming from. It can't be the water. It has to be the bag. Can you suck it dry?
So yeah, we'll let it go from there. That it didn't sound like a huge issue.
Right.
However, that actually ended up being the most serious known incident for a NASA extravehicular activity ever, and it seriously put his life in jeopardy, because what happens in space is the water doesn't just float back down.
Right.
There's no gravity, and so it gets stuck in like your eyes and on your face and in your mouth and in your nose, potentially preventing you from being able to breathe. So they actually had put out what am I trying to say? A study, a team of people to investigate, an investigation board. Those are the words I'm looking for. And they found that it was a misunderstanding of some of the subtleties of how the spacesuit coolant system works in space. It was actually a problem with the coolant system and institutional issues as well. Man, that feels like a recurring theme with NASA. Anytime there's a problem, like, yep, nope, there's an institutional problem with NASA.
Hearing those words.
So there was what really happened was contamination built up and blocked a filter that allowed that allowed water to make its way into the lines that feed air into the helmet, and that actually caused some of the water leakage for the cooling system inside of it. And so we're actually leaking water from the back up and kind of over, which I thought, so in space, they actually have blowers in the helmet to blow air up or down. I'm assuming the air actually blows down then, if that's the way the water was traveling. Right. The reason they do that is, once again, no gravity in space. So as you're exhaling, the carbon dioxide just sits there. You need to blow it away and actually replenish fresh oxygen in front of you. Otherwise, you'll suffocate.
Right. So
Right?
instead of the air blowing, it was water, which is why he was feeling it in the back of his head. And that's also one of the reasons that they initially thought that it was the water bag, just the rehydration system, because there's also a tube that kind of goes back behind your neck there.
Interesting little factoid, and why they considered it an institutional issue is the leak actually didn't start on that spacewalk. The leak started on the previous spacewalk on July 9th. It happened at the very, very end of that spacewalk, and they thought it to be the drinking bag. And the ground crew cleared it. The engineers cleared it, saying, yeah, it's probably just the drinking bag. Go ahead and go back out. Went back out. Really bad day. We had to cut the EVA short, had to bring it back in. So this new study has found we know what happened, institutional issues, and then they were able to recreate it, and obviously fixes are in work. So that was a study that came out earlier this week. Let's do these two stories last. The next to last story is all new Minotaur-C rocket from Orbital Sciences is being developed. Now the full specs of this rocket aren't done yet, so we don't have a real picture of it. But here is kind of a demo picture of I think that's the Taurus rocket. It's kind of a revamp. What this is so Minotaur rockets are typically powered by decommissioned government furnished ballistic missile engines.
Sure.
So basically old missile engines are used to power Minotaur rockets, and while they can use those for government payloads, they cannot use those for commercial payloads. So what Orbital is doing is they're revamping that rocket and designing it around the Taurus, so that they can use it for commercial payloads, and that's going to be the Minotaur-C. That's the brand new rocket that they're working on. And the first payload that they're going to deliver on that, it's actually really kind of cool. It's what is it called?
Skybox.
Skybox. Thank you. I'm like,
I don't want to just interrupt you.
it's called Skybox, and it's going to be delivering a bunch of imagery into space. And instead of taking photos, it's actually going to take, check this out, it's going to take high-definition video from space. This is kind of what it's going to look like. You're going to have 90-second HD video clips at 30 frames per second, and it's going to be able to take that at about a resolution of 80 centimeters or 2.6 feet.
That's crazy.
That's really, really crazy, and they're going to put a bunch of them
really, really detailed.
So back to the rocket, that brand new first stage. The first stage is going to be a Castor 120 solid fuel motor from ATK Tech. It's going to be a 92-inch diameter fairing. We're going to see this in late 2015, and there you go. So a solid fuel vehicle, brand new vehicle. We're seeing a lot of new launch vehicles, aren't we?
All coming from Orbital Sciences Corp.
So that's all Orbital. I'm just saying all new vehicles, right? SpaceX is making stuff. Orbital's making new stuff. It's really cool seeing how many new vehicles that we're getting in this kind of new era of commercial space. And before we go to break, let's talk really quick. Yuri's Night's coming up.
Yuri's Night, which you basically already covered, so thanks for that.
You're welcome. Well, I only touched on it a little bit.
No, I know. So Yuri's Night is the global celebration of humanity's achievements in space. 1961, April 12th, 1961, Yuri Gagarin was the first human in space. April 12th, 1981 was the space shuttle's first launch. And then April 12th every year is now Yuri's Night, which is an awesome thing. And much like Future Day, I almost called it Founders Day, much like Future Day, it's anything and everything that you want it to be. If you want it to be a rave, if you want it to be a bunch of your friends hanging out at the bar, if you want to just go out and see a movie, if you want it to be an entire conference, do it however you want to do it. On-world, off-world, virtual reality. There's going to be an event for somebody out there. Yurisnight.com, I believe also /events or parties, I think is what they prefer to call them.
Isn't it yurisnight.net?
Oh, you're right. I apologize. It is yurisnight.net. I misspoke.
So more information available at yurisnight.net. If you don't have a party in your area, start one. It's a great way to celebrate humanity's accomplishments in space and look forward to the future of what humanity is going to be able to do in space. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, the author of Plundering of NASA and Expose, Rick Boozer, is going to be here. He has an article on space.com that is wildly popular, talking about the space launch system. And is it really, I'm going to use the words, is it really still relevant? Should we be doing that as opposed to letting these commercial space companies build their own vehicles? So stay with us. An interview with Rick Boozer up next.
Look into her face, determination in her eyes.
And welcome back to Space Vidcast. We'd like to thank all the Space Vidcast producers, and those are the people who have spent up to $10, $5 to $10 for making this segment of Space Vidcast possible. So you can go to patreon.com/SpaceVidcast, and if you spend anywhere from $5 to $10, well, $5 or more, you become a Space Vidcast producer. Thank you guys for helping to make this show possible. Once again, patreon.com/SpaceVidcast. Joining us live now is Rick Boozer, author of Plundering of NASA and Expose, as well as the author of On Space.com, Will SpaceX Super Rocket Kill NASA's Rocket to Nowhere? It's an amazing read. We'll leave the link in the show notes. Rick, thank you for joining us today. Why shouldn't we be looking at the Space Launch System? This is a vehicle that humanity has never built before. It's a super heavy lift vehicle, more powerful than Apollo. Why is SLS bad?
Well, as I mentioned in my last appearance, there were two vehicles proposed to NASA by both ULA and SpaceX that would actually have been more capable than the most powerful version of SLS, but some senators said that they didn't like it. What they wanted was to keep people associated with the shuttle working on shuttle level technology so that they wouldn't be giving up that money. So they essentially came to the Obama administration and said, okay, we don't like the idea of commercial crew, but we will allow you to pursue the commercial crew program only if you will allow us to build a shuttle-derived heavy lift launch vehicle instead of you having the competition and so on that you originally wanted to have.
But isn't there something to be said for having a level of government-based space so that the government itself can send humans into space? Isn't there an advantage to that? What if one of the private companies, such as Orbital, SpaceX, it could be anyone, by the way, it could be Blue Origin, what if they just cannot follow through with this and they decide not to make it?
That's the whole idea of having more than one supplier. Now you think about it. NASA's earthbound cousin, or brother or sister if you want to, NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Administration, they don't make their own submarines for ocean exploration or their own research ships for ocean exploration. They don't make their own airplanes for atmosphere exploration at the extreme levels of the atmosphere and so on. There's no need for NASA to do that. If you look at the military, well, a lot of people would say, well, NASA doesn't make their own vehicles, doesn't build their own vehicles. Commercial companies do that. Well, they do from the standpoint of, like, if a house, somebody who is said to build a house, they're said to build a house by having a contractor erect the frames, a contractor do the electrical, a contractor to do the plumbing, but the person overseeing it designed the house and then is supervising minutely these contractors. And so from that standpoint, NASA is indeed a builder of rockets, and there's no need for NASA to be, especially since it is the only government agency that does that, essentially.
Well, in our chat room, Dr. Snooker actually asked a really good question, which is, what is the commercial case for heavy lift? How do these commercial companies make money on building a super heavy lift rocket?
Well, you might ask your boss about that, but they're not talking about, people look at the way things are now and say, well, there's no market for a commercial heavy lift launcher now, therefore it's useless to build one. But in the case of somebody such as Elon, he sees a use for it, and so he's going to build it, whether or not the government helps finance him or not, which is what happened with Falcon Heavy, which is supposedly, hopefully going to launch this year. That's totally made on SpaceX's own dime without any government financing. So, and there's already launches slated for that. But what Elon wants to eventually do is get to Mars, and so there's his incentive for building one. And the thing about it is that every time the size of the payload to orbit has been increased, somebody has found a commercial use for it, and that will be that way. Then it's kind of, if you look at it in reverse, like the mini-sats that are being done by Planet Labs, they thought only academia would be interested in these things and that the market would not be as big as it is, and then they said, boom, all these commercial companies are finding are saying we want to do this and we want to do that, and they've got a gold mine going on right now with those launches of those CubeSats from ISS. So the same thing applies to that, I think.
Well, along that same vein, we here at Space Vidcast speak a lot about cooperation. A lot of different companies doing similar things. Do you see any harm in NASA doing a heavy lift as well as SpaceX or Orbital or anybody else also maintaining a heavy lift at the same time? Does that make sense?
Yes, because NASA did not want to build SLS. This was forced on them by Congress. And what NASA wanted to do was spend less money getting maybe even 2 heavy lift launchers, more powerful than SLS, and saving so much money that they would have something actually to send on a NASA mission into deep space. That's the problem with SLS. It costs so much that the big payloads that it is designed to lift, they're not being developed because there's no money to develop them because the rocket is taking up so much money. And that was exactly the situation that NASA wanted to avoid with their original proposal before certain senators forced SLS on them.
I think you're hitting a key point that a lot of people forget, which is SLS is not necessarily a NASA rocket. It's a senator's rocket. It was designed by Congress. In fact, there are laws as to what NASA can and cannot put onto the rocket itself. So the engineering of the rocket is even dictated by Congress.
It's called the Senate Launch System for a reason. It was actually legally mandated that shuttle technology be used, even though we've got better things now. But that's what they wanted. That's what they got. Did any of y'all see the hearing on the so-called proposed Mars flyby?
Oh no, that just happened, but I missed it.
I missed it as well. I apologize. I meant to go back.
I now have 2 favorite comedies: The Big Bang Theory and that hearing. It was the most farcical thing I've ever. It's nothing. They keep coming up. They keep trying to fit the SLS round peg into a square hole. And what they said was, okay, we want to use SLS and Orion in 2021 to do a flyby around Mars. And nobody proposed where the money was going to come from to do this with. And worse than that, nobody took into account one very simple point. Orion's heat shield could not handle it. According to Lockheed Martin, they're not even sure that the heat shield on Orion could handle the return from a near-Earth asteroid where there reentry speed would be not nearly as fast as it would be from Mars. Now, they know it could withstand the heat from reentry from the moon because it's AVCOAT, the exact same, pretty much, heat shield coating that was used in Apollo. Now, why they decided to use AVCOAT when since then NASA came up with a much better heat shielding known as Pika, which SpaceX, with the help of NASA, has taken and improved. And ironically, even though like the Dragon and probably even the Boeing CST-100, I believe, I'm not sure, I believe its heat shield is derived from Pika. Ironically, either one of those low Earth orbit spacecraft could probably handle the reentry. But because they decided to go with the old Apollo coating, it wouldn't. And plus, and here is where it really gets ridiculous. They're talking about doing this mission on the very first crewed flight of Orion, when they would be testing out the environmental systems with an actual crew for the first time.
You generally like to test those things before you fly.
Yeah. Well, they're talking about doing a test before then, but this is the first test with the crew, and so you're going to send them all the way to Mars months and months and months, and not know whether the environmental system is going to get them alive there or not. Secondly, this would be only the second flight of the Block 1 SLS, so it wouldn't have flown enough to have proven itself really safe. So it's just the nuttiest thing I have ever seen in my life. It's nothing but an excuse to try to find an excuse to keep SLS alive.
So
and Orion.
So what should NASA's role be then? If they could do anything, right? If they didn't have SLS crammed down their throat, what should they be doing? Should they get out of the launcher market completely? Should they build something, just not SLS?
This is the reality distortion field around SLS proponents. This, to them, NASA designing, developing, and minutely supervising the construction of a rocket equals NASA human spaceflight. So they say if you don't build SLS, then that's the end of NASA human spaceflight, because NASA would not be designing, developing, and minutely supervising the construction of this. But that's crazy. Like I said, NOAA, their earthbound cousin, does sea exploration. It's said to do sea exploration, even though they don't design, build, even though they don't design, develop, and minutely supervise the construction of like submarines and research ships and high altitude planes to explore the ionosphere and so on. They're still doing exploration of the sea and the atmosphere. Why can you say that NOAA still does exploration of the sea and the atmosphere? Because there is NOAA personnel on those vehicles, and because NOAA personnel are maintaining some of the infrastructure anyway of those vehicles and fueling them and so on. In the same way, whether or not NASA is as intimately involved in the construction of launch vehicles and spacecraft, if you've got NASA astronauts on a deep space mission, NASA is doing deep space flight. Common sense tells you that. So that's just plain a lie when they say, oh, if we don't build SLS and Orion, then that's the end of NASA human spaceflight. And it isn't. For one thing, it made sense for NASA in the 60s, and I mentioned this in the last program I was on here, to be designing, developing, and minutely directing the construction of launchers and spacecraft. because that was cutting edge technology then. NASA is supposed to be a cutting edge technology agency. It is supposed to develop the cutting edge space technology, and once it's developed this, it hands over that technology to industry to figure out a way of making it economical enough to where they can make a profit. And that's what's happening right now with the new space movement. The reason why Orbital Sciences and SpaceX now can develop good rockets, as good or better than NASA, but yet do it much more cost-effective than NASA, is because they've taken this technology that NASA developed back in the 60s and maybe even the 70s and figured out ways of making something that they can make a profit off of. It's not NASA's job to figure out how to make stuff cheap. It's NASA's job just to figure out how to do stuff. It's industry's responsibility to figure out how to make it profitable on the open market.
All right, one last question before we go to break really quick. And that's going to be, we saw SLS before under a different name. It was the Ares 5. It was under the Constellation program. And Constellation was canceled and never flew once. It was all paper rockets. There was Ares 1X, but that was not an Ares rocket. That was that was a totally different thing. So will we see this? Will SLS ever fly? Are we shoveling billions and billions of dollars into a paper rocket that will never fly, in your opinion?
Well, I think you're going to see a very, first of all, as far as the Orion spacecraft, you're going to see a very low-level version of that without the full environmental control flying fairly soon. But it lacks a long way, for reasons I won't get into right now, from being a usable spacecraft as far as human beings are concerned. It is possible that you could see 1 or 2 flights of the Block 1 version, which is the 70 metric ton payload version of SLS. But that was only supposed to be a stepping stone to the 130 metric ton. And I don't think you're ever going to see that. But you might see 1, maximum 2 flights of the 70 metric ton. But I think with everything that's happening, particularly when what you're seeing with the reusability and the Falcon Heavy and so on, I think it's just going to be obvious to even somebody who's not a space geek that this whole, the whole SLS thing is ludicrous.
So actually I have one more question before break. And that is, let's assume for a moment that private space does build a super heavy lift rocket that is as powerful or more powerful than the Space Launch System that's being developed by Congress / NASA. Let's also assume that that vehicle flies right around the same time or sooner than SLS. Doesn't this whole problem become self-correcting? Because
that's what I'm saying.
The issue is Congress they're the ones who are doing this. But if you're someone who's voting and you go, wait, my congressman just cost me $9 billion on something that we can't even use.
That's what I'm saying. The death of SLS is inevitable.
So then it self-corrects, doesn't it? So now SLS goes away.
But the problem is I'm just trying to rush it along a little bit because it's a shame that all these billions of dollars are, I mean, you might as well just load them up into a trunk, into a series of these billions of dollars and put them into a bunch of transfer trucks, take them out into a field somewhere and light fire to them.
No, we should launch them into space.
Yeah, well, that's essentially. By the way, they just came out. They said that this is NASA. They were saying that they're not going to. Remember what I told you? They're not going to have any payloads big enough to launch on SLS. So, in order for the thing to fly right, and in order for them to see whether or not it's going to be able to lift those size payloads, they're talking about launching them with maybe a small valid payload, but with the rest of it filled with do-nothing ballast, like maybe, lead bricks or something? I don't know, but that's what they were saying, that they're going to have to, first of all, in order for it to be practical, they said they're going to have to launch it twice a year, and then they're going to have to launch it with a lot of ballast for payload. Just empty weight ballast.
Well, Rick Boozer, thank you for joining us. Your book, The Plundering of NASA, an Expose, is available on Amazon.com. If I remember right, there's a Kindle edition of this as well.
Yes, there is,
Yep.
indeed.
This is a great read also. It talks a lot about what we just talked about today and goes into much more detail as to Orion, the spacecraft that sits atop SLS, and other interesting things that are happening to NASA. And I do feel like it's we should stress it's not actually NASA's fault for the most part. It's really
Right.
Congress's fault. NASA really wants to do some amazing things. They're just prevented by law from doing them. So, Rick, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you'll be able to stick around
I will.
and talk to the live crew after the show. For everyone else, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, comments from last week's show. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
1, 0. Liftoff.
The fleet of space shuttles were doing amazing things in space.
We've got all your space geekery right here.
Welcome back, and we'd like to thank the SpaceVidcast patrons who help make the comments section of this show go. Here you can see a list of these patrons. These are everyone who spent anywhere from $1 to $4.99 on this episode. So thank you, every SpaceVidcast patron. Once again, patreon.com/SpaceVidcast help fund this show. We are a crowdfunded show. It's really cool that we live in a time where you can crowdfund a science show that traditional TV would never think of airing. We can have conversations about SLS, and we can have conversations about NASA, and we can talk about these geeky things and kind of do whatever we want to do. But in order to make that happen, we need your help to fund the show, because these shows are not free. They do cost. So SpaceVidcast patrons, from the bottom of our heart, thank you for helping make this show go. We call it a value for value. If you got value out of this show, we ask that you put a little bit of value back into the show. If every single person who watched last week's episode on YouTube contributed $1 per episode, just $1 per episode, we'd be like 3 or 4 goals ahead of where we're at right now. My hope is that by the end of this week, we're at $300 per episode, which gets us 3/4 of the way to our next goal, which will get us more equipment, and then you can all see Dutta on camera, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. I promise you, it's a good thing.
After the haircut.
Well, you'll be able to hear him too, which he's making noises right now. I'm not sure you can quite hear that.
He doesn't like me.
Dutta's our director. He sits in the room next door, and he's a great guy who makes this show go. All right, comments from last week's show. First up, Danny Hampton says, laughing out loud, I just noticed the little Lego man on the mic. Danny, I haven't the slightest idea what you're talking about. Next up, Glacius Blue says, agreed. This is in regards to the Google Lunar X Prize. Agreed. Moon Express looks like the most likely to win the Google Lunar X Prize, or maybe they just have better PR team. It'd be great to have a stretch goal to have proper website with space news. Mainstream doesn't cover much. When they do, it's usually wrong. There's actually a great website from Dornbus's website.
Oh, Eva.
Com. That Michael Dornbus does amazing coverage of the Google Lunar X Prize teams. Head over to Eva. If you want updates, that is like the definitive place to go for updates on the Google Lunar X Prize team.
He actually was doing such great coverage, sort of on his own. He was asked to come to the Google Lunar X Prize Summit that they hold every year to basically, they gave him extra access. They gave him way better access to the teams and whatnot. So yeah, no, he's doing a really great job of that.
So if you want to go, so mainstream coverage would be cool, but I think Michael does such a great job as it is. I think he does a better job than mainstream coverage would be able to do, because they're just going to condense it down. So that's where you really want to go. It'd be nice for them to have a proper website and space news and whatnot. They're actually supposed to have social media going on and like podcasts and stuff like that, but they don't seem to be doing that very well.
Not so much.
So
sorry.
They should. Shame on you, Google Lunar X Prize teams. We want more of you. Be cooler. All right. Halvar Rachnis says, this was in regards to us finding different ways to compare orders of magnitude so you get an idea of
Besides
scale.
football
Fields and number of school bus lengths. Yeah, how many football fields long is that, and how many school buses wide is it? It says Wikipedia has an awesome series of pages comparing orders of magnitude for various measurements with more recognizable objects and entities. And then I put the URL in there. We'll just leave that up just for an extra moment so you can jot that. You know what? I'll do one better. We'll put it in the show notes so you can just click on it. That's a much better idea. If you're watching on Roku, you're gonna have to copy that.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with that. Have fun. Wiz Dizza says the geeky rocket stats are awesome, and actually we took it up a level with this show. We added the rocket statistics for the H-IIB on the right-hand side. Let me know what you guys thought about those. Did you like those? Did you want to see different stats in that bar? What do you really want to see there? Use it more often, but please, 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 please use metric figures, kilograms and meters. It would be much appreciated. I completely agree, and I'd like your opinion on this as well, Space Vidcast community. The Imperial system is archaic. Base 12, what? So a base 10 metric system makes sense, makes a ton of sense to me. I think I'd like to use metric, but I realize that a good swath of the U.S., which is where almost 50% of our viewers come from, they're used to the Imperial system. So are you guys okay if we only display in metric? We can display both in metric and Imperial, but it's such a pain in the butt. It's really, not to sound whiny, but man, come on, right? I mean, you guys are smart enough to do the metric conversion, or you have a rough... Are we at a point now in society where people kind of understand, in the U.S. at least, understand metric? And I don't know. I really don't. I do, but I work with metric a lot, so maybe that's why. I don't know. You guys let me know. I'll listen to you on this one because I really don't know the answer. This one says, regarding the Space Launch System / Orion, it's from Sean Lynch. Leave it to Congress to build a rocket to nowhere. As long as politicians are in charge of the space program, goals and objectives, we will make little progress, if any, in science and engineering. I agree. You know, it would be really nice for us to move back to the Apollo era where instead of saying, hey, NASA, you need to build a rocket, you need to use shuttle-derived technology, you need to use solid fuels, it needs to lift this much, it needs to do these things, rather than the congressmen pretending like they're scientists, which they are not. Rather than that happening, Congresses, rather than that happening, I'd love to see them say, NASA, you need to go to Mars. Here's your budget, figure it out. And instead of saying, here's their budget, which is nothing, going, let's make this a priority. NASA, go to Mars. You tell us what you need. Let's do this thing. Or, you know what, NASA, go back to the moon, set up a colony. You tell us what you need. Let's do this thing. That's what we did in Apollo. That worked really well. We went from nothing. We went from no humans in space to a human walking on an alien body for the first time since civilization began in 10 years. That's what happens when you give NASA that kind of power. We could do that again. All right, I'm sorry, soapboxed there for a moment. But seriously, people, stop pretending you're scientists. FPV Reviews says, we already have created a Death Star. We're on it right now. Enough nukes to blow up almost, I think you meant to say almost anything we want in the solar system if we want to. I completely disagree. I think you don't have a... I don't think you comprehend the scale of things. Let's just say for a moment, we lit off every nuke on Earth right now all at once. Humanity, gone. We won't survive that. Earth, still here. Earth, it'll get rid of us. Humans, we can't handle a lot. As we're killing the Earth, which we're not actually doing, as we're inducing climate change, we're only killing ourselves. The planet's going to survive just fine. Life on this planet will probably survive, although maybe not like we see it today. Us, humans, gone. The only way to ensure our survival, and I mean the only way to ensure that humanity will remain, is for us to get off this planet and go to other bodies. For us to go to Mars as a first stepping stone, but then continue out there, continue out to the stars. Once we're able to get humanity off the planet and create a backup of humanity, we now help to ensure the future of humanity continues on. And you know, as we evolve, maybe humans won't look like we do now, and that's okay. It's that's evolution. That's how things go. All right, any final comments?
No.
All right. That's our show for this week. For those of you watching live, stay tuned. We're going to go back to Rick Boozer. You guys can ask me anything you want, on topic, off topic. That's how that works. For everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week. Once again, I implore you, patreon.com/SpaceVidcast. Help us produce this show week after week, bring you new and interesting people. We do have a guest next week. We're bringing on, and I do not remember his name. I'm a terrible human being. But we're bringing on a lawyer student who is studying for space. And this comes back from when we were talking about lunar rights. How does that work? He'll be able to talk more in depth about how does that actually work and what are some of the laws and things you don't think about in space. So join us next. Space Lawyer. For those of you who are Patreon Premier, which is $10 and up, you'll be getting a notification of who it is, and you'll be allowed to ask us questions in advance. For everyone else, thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next week.